Hey, welcome back to another Scope Creepers episode. My name is Aramis, and I have been on a bit of a hiatus because if you haven't heard, I've been making a game about feeding a black hole. Well, I made it, and then Thornity, who is the guest on this podcast today, and I released it earlier on Monday. You can pick up a copy yourself or make sure to leave a review. At this point, we are at over $200,000 in sales, which is absolutely just wild and crazy. And although I miss making the podcast, I think my time away from the podcast episodes did help me make this game as good as possible so that the release could be as good as successful as possible. But one thing I will say is I attribute this podcast to some of that game success, not only because I got to talk with other incremental devs and just other game developers in general, but I also met Thornity from doing this podcast. I remember he reached out, it was probably, that would have been like June of this year, right before Click and Conquer came out, and he wanted to be on the podcast, and he was talking about some ideas he had, and I kind of just brushed him off. I'm like, yeah, whatever, like, Click and Conquer I'd never heard of before, and you know, whatever. I was like, you know, sure, fine, whatever, yeah, fine. And then all of a sudden, Click and Conquer blows up, and he's like, hey, our game just sold X, Y, and Z. Could we be on the podcast now? I was like, yeah, that sounds way more interesting to talk to you. Like, all of a sudden, he had a pitch and a reason to be on the podcast. Now, I probably should have just accepted the initial invite and had him on the podcast to begin with, but it was very interesting, and that created a snowballing effect where we started talking, we became friends. I hired him to audit my games Hexagod and Chess Survivors, and then he kept asking and giving me ideas about a game about feeding a black hole, finally proposing to me, finally coming up with an idea to partner together in, which I guess is a proposition. The Thornity proposed to me in August, and the rest has been history. No, and then we made a game about feeding a black hole. This episode is a special live Q&A. We got we got questions from people in Discord or on the Steam page for a game about feeding a black hole, and then also live over on the Twitch channel. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. This is the third time we've had Thornity on the podcast. Thank you to him. Like, I think we made a great game together, and I stand by it, and I'm excited to see what next year looks like. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. This is truly something that I do just because in this last year, I really needed community. I was realizing that I was missing having coworkers, and so I kind of re-brought up the podcast and used it as a way to meet a bunch of developers and find more community, and I figured these are really cool conversations that I just wanted to share with you. I plan to make a bunch of these in the new year, so if there's other developers or people who you want me to chat with, let me know. Like, I'll chat with anybody at this point, and we can just talk about games because I think if you're at the beginning, middle, end, somewhere in between, your game development journey is interesting, and I want to hear about it. I've been Aramis. Thanks for watching this video. Enjoy the podcast with none other than the amazing, the magnificent, the Corey, the Thornity. Let's get into it. Where I wanted to start is the topic of today's YouTube video that I shared my opinions on, and that is based off of the success we've had over the last 4 days. I think we're just shy or sitting around 175,000 net, or like 155 gross. Do you think that the success we had was based off of luck, skill, or somewhere in between? And why?
I actually laughed when I watched the video because we both know somebody, and this person asked you whether our success was luck or whatever, and you told them you thought it was luck, but you said, I'm pretty sure that Thornity's going to say it's skill. And they asked me the exact same question, but before telling me what you said, I said exactly the same thing. I said, Aramis is going to say it's luck, and I am going to say it's skill. And they laughed because they said, I already asked him, and he said that you would say that, and you said the exact same thing that he would say. So it was no surprise to see the video.
Yes.
It was
I mentioned in the video too, I'm like, you probably have a different idea.
I mean, obviously there's a factor of luck. Like, I'm not naive to that, right? Like, Cade could have been sick that day and not checked his email, and it went below his inbox, and someone accidentally clicks delete. Like, of course, you know. But I am in the camp of like, yeah, but experience in knowing to swing at those opportunities and trying to find ways of just like putting the luck more in your favor.
Hmm.
Like, even silly things like just following up on the emails. Like some of those people actually then responded.
Yeah.
And was it still lucky that they responded? Yeah, but you still took the action of following up, versus if I didn't, they wouldn't have. Because some of them were like 2 weeks later. Like they were not going to go find the email. It was the fact that replying to the email brought it back up. So is there a secret formula to reproduce? No. Do I think this is a better strategy that de-risks a project following it? Yeah. Like I think doing what we've done helps a game have a greater chance than not doing what we did. Um,
Yeah. I think I view it in in my head it's a graph, right? Normal distribution curve, stuff like that. And I feel that this level of success in the last 4 days is a higher end of that normal distribution curve. Like the work we did was like moving basically the center of that or trying to widen it or we're trying to like impact that curve somehow. And I think we got a higher end of the curve based off of just my gut feeling, not really having, a ton of data to back up that claim or that feeling. Um, I think that's a bit of luck, but I also think that, like you said before, and like I said in my video, that there's a lot of skill involved here too. Like I'm just there's a highlight reel of all these conversations of you and I having, and you and I like having this moment of like it just clicked, and like then you sending me the thing, me playing and be like, yeah, that's it, right? We had so many moments where we're like, oh, that thing didn't click, let's throw that away, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got it. And then you sent it to me and I'm like, okay, cool. Let me then polish that up and like let's move on from that. And like there's so many dang moments where we had literally that like moment of like, oh yeah, this is it. This is the thing.
yeah, and uh, I'm interested in sending you the playlist Jan 1st because I have been recording as we go.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I've been recording on YouTube videos of like my thoughts in those moments because I thought it'd be good to document and look back. Um, and
Damn.
even the moment of like not knowing what the numbers is, like that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to look. So like I literally turned on OBS and for the first time seeing the numbers had OBS recording, and you get to
Thornity's here doing
see
like a first look with our game numbers.
yeah, like you get to see. I think the nice thing about it is you can actually see the progression. Like at one point, I say something like the game has like a 1% chance, we'll say, of doing 20, 30,000 copies in the first 72 hours. And
Yeah.
I think the last spot, I say it's about 5% in one of those videos.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like foreign to a possibility of like zero. It had crept up, but I still thought the game was more going to be like this 10 to 15,000 copy range, maybe in the first 72 hours, maybe first week was probably the more realistic. I think I pegged that at like 60 or 70% of what I thought the game would do.
Yeah.
But there were, in my mind, signals of like the possibility. It was like, okay, if the game converts like other games in this category that are like average, for successful games, the average of a successful game, you define that whatever you want, but I meant like games have done like, I don't know, 80,000 plus. And then you look at the average of conversion and you start looking at what the wish lists are, and you're like, okay, that means we should hit like popular. Well, we knew we were going to hit popular up and coming, given where we were with wish list, then new and
Yeah.
trending. Then there's a question of like how many concurrent players are going to join. But the moment I saw the concurrent players, I knew the game was like astronomically in that 5%. Like I didn't think it would go beyond that, to be honest. And I looked back and the game did do more than 30,000 copies in the first 72 hours. So, someone had mentioned the Dev Dream podcast that I did with Blake, and like literally the first 10 seconds of that hook of that podcast is like, what do you think the games could do? And I'm like, the really, really crazy number is 20 to 30,000 copies in the first 72 hours.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like I knew the number was out there, but it wasn't so foreign. Like I wasn't saying, oh, there's a possibility it's doing 1 million copies for 72 hours. Like I knew that would not happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But this is a high roll in that maybe not even high
Exactly.
roll to take the word luck out of, but just like of the range of outcomes, this is a high range from what your gut was telling you heading into release.
Yeah, we went in with a base stat, and then we rolled the d20, and we hit whatever 20 that was required, and you had a 1 in 20 chance of that, and that's just what we needed to do that. If not, we
Yeah.
had the base stat, so even if we got the worst roll in there, I still was confident kind of where we were going to like land initially. Um, and I think that's a lot of what this is. Like I saw the video, and it's like I think the next game, like once we get to a demo phase and get to like a next fest, we'll have a good idea of like kind of where the floor will be of the game.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, not necessarily the upper bound. The upper bound is so hard, but I think getting a good idea of like what's the low end of what the game will do at a minimum,
Yeah.
um, can start becoming a little bit more easier or realistic to spot. So
Yeah. I think that's something I'm interested in the long run of making games as well, is bringing up that floor, that like that baseline of sales. And I'm not a believer that it's like my name Aramis on a game will bring up the floor. I don't think that's true. I think it's like the games that we make and the things that we do, our skill set, our experiences will bring them up, and then you're starting from square one with every game. I think like we're not a big enough studio or names yet to be like breaking through that. So I think hopefully the next games have a higher floor with a lower chance of it being something that doesn't see a return on investment.
I
The return on investment might be
partially,
literally breaking even, or like this game, this is well above breaking even, right? Like I think that's the huge range of outcomes is like, I think I can be a frugal developer with my time now and do things quicker and more efficiently, so that then the game only has to sell 1,000 copies, not 30,000 copies to be successful.
I do partially disagree.
You do.
I I am a my thoughts
You
is
disagree with our name meaning something?
not so much our name, but the access to what we have, and not even content creators. That is one aspect that I do think we have like a little bit of an edge reaching out to people now,
Hmm.
because we've worked with them. You know, even some of the content creators with the game about feeding a black hole, they've gone back and forth with me. We modified one of the game based off one of the content creators' feedbacks. We had I know a content creator, a director of a content creator, leave that content creator, go to a different content creator, email me knowing that like they had a key and they want a key for a different YouTuber. Like,
Yeah.
but what I would actually say is if the game is somewhat in the similar genre to Game of Feeding Black Hole, it's like, okay, the game is gonna get daily deal, period. It already meets all the criteria on day 4.
Yeah.
If you launch the next game on the daily deal and you bundle and you do an announcement telling people about the release of the game, like
I didn't
you
think
can
about it that way.
you can
You're
drive,
right.
you can pull up that floor. So all of a sudden, the game with no demo at Next Fest is got even let's say 2,000 wish lists or even 1,000 wish lists is way more than starting from scratch of nothing.
Sure.
Um, and
Because
the
we
question
can
would
like make the post from one, we can cross post
the
and
post
bundle and
on launch day we can update the game literally in game to say like also launched XYZ game.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so every person who's in a game about feeding black hole sees the new game, they click. Even
Yeah.
small conversions, like you get enough users, all of a sudden, hey, that's 1,000 wish list,
Yeah.
less that you have to go find.
Yeah.
And
And that makes a huge difference. If we went into an X Fest, we went in with like 7K. Had we gone in
yep,
with 2K, completely different X Fest.
yep,
Completely
exactly.
different, like, and that's simply I'm Cade playing the game or not, right? That's like that shit's the luck in my opinion. Is like if it is, yeah, if it's that those Steam isn't linear. Steam isn't, oh, I have 4,000 more wish lists. That means I have X% more. It is like it is that increasing scale of factors. Cool. So you're firmly in the skill camp. I think in the last week I've more come down to the middle pack. Of it feeling like both, I think is where I finish on the luck versus skill. It's both, which is not really a strong answer, but
I don't want to jinx it, knock on wood, but I'm currently 303 games launched that are all successful. Different variants of success, but like for
Fair
what the
enough.
dev wanted to do, they're all so far surpassed it.
Fair
So
enough. Fair enough. All right, next question. This one comes from you. So that first one was from me.
oh,
Is it narcissistic to be doing a Q&A asking yourself the first two questions?
well, if no one asked other questions, I think it's fine. But
We'll get there. And it's just 15 of our own questions. Just kidding. This is in future games, what lessons did we learn with Black Hole to implement or not to do? What lessons did we learn to implement or not? I really, looking back, one of the things I really like a lot is this separation of data and gameplay from the perspective of even responsibilities. I don't think necessarily having it all completely separate in two different apps and tools, I don't really care about how that's done. I liked the idea of somebody controlling the tree and someone controlling the data, because I think we both learned a lot from that interaction of like, you would give me something and I would play it and be like, oh, this taught me something about my game that I didn't know beforehand. And like vice versa. I think sometimes I would add something and you'd be like, okay, cool, let me monkey around with the tree and see if something works in that regard. And I think that sort of iteration back and forth of like, it almost felt like we were like playing badminton or something where we're just like hitting things back and forth and like seeing what felt good and what didn't feel good was like a really, I think, a good way to experiment with the game. I would take that forward to an additional one. I think for this question, we'll each pick something we liked and we'll each pick something we didn't like. How's that?
sure, you want me to answer the like
Yeah,
first, and then
badminton
okay.
to you, I guess. I don't know why I picked badminton. Maybe
Uh,
because I suck at tennis.
uh, I agree with that. So that probably would have been the
Chat, it's
thing
over. There's
moving
nothing he liked
forward.
about working with me. Shit.
um, I think we had, especially early on, a good balance of like not being too rigid on time. And it was actually not even we, it was mostly you in that scenario. I was just the sounding board of like, hey, this is a core mechanic. Let's do some playing around. Like, I think you went through like 12 different POCs and we
Yeah.
trashed all other 11, whatever the amount was. And not doubling down and being like, okay, yeah, but this is what we should do. We've already put in this work. Like, we've already got it working. Let's move forward and see. It was really, I guess, finding those moments where I think the CEO, well, ex-CEO of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, I guess it is. I always never know if Bezos or Bezos, but he had some discussion around like finding opportunities where like the door stays open even after you make the decision versus the door being fully shut after you make a decision. And
Yeah.
recognizing those is, I think, really important and a good lesson to move forward. Like that core mechanic is not an easily reopen up door because then we're going to build upon it and we're going to build upon it. But like minor things in the UI, like it's like pff, whatever, we'll come back. This has no, like it's all signals. We don't really care if it's this way.
Yeah.
We can
Yep.
redesign it. Like it's very flexible. But like the core mechanic, like think we did the gravity black hole. We spent a month and we built all these skills on top of that. It all gets wiped on that decision, like, or a
Yeah.
lot of it gets wiped on that
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that.
One of the more interesting consequences of that same idea is when you get a skill tree completely balanced and our goal is pacing of the skill tree, bug fixes can completely destroy the balance of the skill tree. There's a few times where we would fix things and be like, oh, this changes everything. This is like a 5 to 10%. And luckily your tool could handle that changing easily. But it was like, it's an interesting thing even now looking at some people reporting bugs. I'm like, we have to consider, do we want to fix some of these things? Because it would fundamentally change how the
Yep.
skill tree plays and the pacing of that skill tree, which is something we've like protected throughout the whole time. So the other part of this is a lesson we learned that we won't do in future games. Nothing comes to mind off the top of my head. I'm going to keep thinking about it. Do you have anything off the top of your head for something that we won't do moving forward?
Um, I think not like sometimes taking steps back and like actually realizing like, okay, I'm doing a bunch of tedious work. I need to spend the time and just allocate it to fix it. Like actually the tool greatly improved the moment you were like, I want to use this. Like
Mm,
I was making it work for myself, but even that was hindering on time for myself because I was just like, well, it's good enough, but not recognizing, okay, it's actually wasting more time than me spending like whatever it was, 4 hours to add a UI and not like accidentally mess up things myself and being like, whoops, I hit W instead of E and just deleted stuff and now I have to go restore the tree and um uh I still think there's like spots where finding workflows for like QA tooling, because of exactly like this. I spent a lot of time on, okay, we made a change, but how much does that impact? And then going back and thinking like, okay, the next time we do this tree, I probably want to build some tooling around like computing out the expectations of like a game. Like, okay, you got to the end of Act One. What was the timing? And recording those and like having some way of quickly, okay, we made a bunch of changes. All I do is immediately forward to the end of Act One, play, and then I look at the numbers. Good. We did not
yeah.
muck too much. We're within the bounds of what we expected.
Yeah.
Because it ends up eating a lot of time when you do have to go back and do the testing. Uh, like the end to end was always the scariest. It's like, okay, but what happens if we find something at an hour and 45 and then we have to go in and change a bunch of stuff? It's like, oh God.
Yeah.
Um,
So your answer is to try to because it's a balancing act. This balancing act of like, when do I invest time into something versus when do I just let it go? I was in Jotson's stream yesterday and he was talking about a refactor. And I just asked the question that we've asked ourselves this whole time. What's the expected value on that time investment of refactoring? And he's like, well, it takes me 5 minutes to set up. I'm planning on doing 5 to 6 of these things. It's about 30 minutes. And it maybe takes me 2 to 3 hours to do the refactor. And it's just like, and those situations, it's easy to do that math and figure it out. But it's like, you're saying that maybe we were too aggressive with that metric of trying to be efficient with our time, that you lost track of things that would have maybe saved more time in the long run, or made even your sanity, because that's something to measure, right? There's value in keeping your sanity about yourself. So you're saying maybe that's something we'll try to balance a little bit differently in the next time?
Fine in the moment. I'm positioning this in such a way like moving forward, what would I not do? So now I have the game, you said December 23rd, we're probably not going to be doing fixes. Great. After December 23rd is when I start thinking about, okay, if we make another game or we continue to add more to the game content, now is
Yeah.
the time for me to start revisiting this and say, like, is there a spot where the trade-off makes sense for me to invest right now to save the time? Versus it's kind of hard to do it in the middle of it because it's unknown and you also don't know how
Well,
many
racing
times
to
you're
a
going to
deadline
do
too.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how many times is this really going to do it? Is this a one-off time where I have to do the full tree, or is it going to come up like 5 or 6 times where it would have made sense to have the tool? Now I have that data, so now I can go and be like, hey, having quick and easy ways of like queuing out the full tree is actually really valuable, and will
Yeah.
like just one time will save me like 2 hours. So now it's like, okay, what's that look like? Can I spend like the 2 to 6 hours building a tool to streamline? I don't know, but I'm willing to play around with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's maybe to give a little of a sneak preview in the long run of this game is this tool could be something we also build for public use of a like modding tool, and there's almost infinite upside to that.
I can actually give a real example that recently happened on the grid level. I wanted to know it in the normal gameplay. What is the total amount of percents and roll up at the end of the game? Because for like, if I'm building like say the grid, I want to have a general idea of like where does like laser width get silly stupid, and it's like, well, probably at the end of the normal game. So what's that look like? So
You have to
very
unlock
quickly, I
everything to
just
figure it out.
yeah, that was the easy way. It's just like unlock all the acts, go hover over the tile. But it also takes me 5 minutes
A
with
summary screen that just says
ChatGPT.
show me all of the mod values given the current tree at max.
Yeah, or even just using JQ to parse out the JSON and just do the sum of
Yeah.
all the mods.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah, stuff like that will be improved again and again and again. I had an answer that I can't remember what it was. Okay, we'll move on then. I enjoyed everything about it, and there's nothing I would change. Um, Next question is from Bear Like Lion. Now that the game is launched, how do you feel about its reception and feedback? Given another chance, would you have done anything different? Okay, it's the same question, but how do we feel? How do we feel about the reception and feedback so far? You can go first if you want.
I'm pretty having already gone through a lot of this with Click and Conquer. I really like it doesn't even feel different. I'm just like I wake up. Like my wife asked me about how much did the game do more than I even care or look at this point.
Sure.
I'm just like, it doesn't matter. It does what it does. The comments the same thing. I'm like, I know there's gonna be a minority that's just like, it doesn't matter what we do, and you can't please everyone. And I've just like, I'm happy that there's a large percentage of people who enjoy the game. I can look at the number and say we sold X copies, and the refund is low.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's good enough.
Yeah.
Like some people aren't gonna like the linear. Absolutely. Do I wish the game catered to all people? Yes. It's incredibly hard to make and design a game for that though. And
Yeah.
the lessons, I think a good lesson that we did take away was we stayed true to the core audience in building the game.
Yeah.
And what we decided on was like this linear path, hold their hand and control the pacing for them. So they have a good experience and not a terrible one that they happen to stumble into.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I just kind of don't care what people think anymore. Like you hate it, you love it, so be it.
Yeah. That's fair. That's completely fair. And how do I feel about it? This would have been a good thing to like. I was gonna maybe make daily videos, and I just didn't have the energy for that. But it's like, this is my first time hitting it big, right? So I have a very different experience than you're having right now because you've done it before. Um, how does it feel? A little bit of it doesn't quite feel real as far as how many people have played this game and enjoyed it. Like a 90% positivity rate and what over 30,000, say more than 30,000. I don't know what
Yep.
number we're at, right? That's a lot of people who enjoyed the game. And that's really that's it. That's cool. I appreciate that. And like from a personal perspective, having this game essentially fund the next 2 years of development work is incredible. It's gonna be life changing in the way that I'll get back to some of the things I wanted to do when I was like had a full-time job and stuff like that. So it feels a little bit of a weight lift off my shoulders to have like opened this fortune cookie and see inside that it was very successful and that quite frankly, I could just spend the next year working on this game if I wanted to. I don't want to. I want to keep making other games because, like, the other feeling, I'm like, this is awesome, and this is not the peak of my game dev career. Like, this isn't the game that I'm gonna like be like, this is my magnum opus or opus magnum. I don't know what order those two words ever go in because of the game. The game is the opposite of what the actual word is, I think. Whatever. This isn't the peak of my game development career. Like it might be my most successful game I ever make. That might be true from a financial standpoint. That could absolutely be the case, but this is not going to be the game that I'm like, this is the one, this is the thing. Like I like this game. This game's going to have a special place in my heart always just because this is so freaking successful. And I'm going to go make more games, which I think is awesome because there's a part of me that worried that having a successful game would be like, okay, now I'm done. It's time to hang up. Not even the metaphorical hat, the Aramis green hat. Maybe I need a new hat since we're in a new phase of this. I had a yellow hat, now I got a green hat, and then now I need a new hat since we're in the new
You need
phase.
purple for the game about being a black hole.
Okay.
Max tier, right?
Well, max tier is purple, I suppose. I was gonna say, why wouldn't it be a black hat? Yeah, I think we answered that question pretty well. Next question. This might be a good one. Anything that we did that took a lot of time and effort that didn't pay off like we hoped. Is there anything in that category? There's a handful of mechanics that are partially probably still in the game that were removed or not put in. And so I could list some of those things of like different mechanics that we were probably hoping would work or hoping would be fun and didn't actually make it into the game. I think the one I was hoping would fit is it was a fireball mechanic that when you broke, the fireballs would shoot out, kind of like there's a PoE skills that do this, but it's like they'd shoot out and they'd chain and they'd bounce around the screen, and it looked really cool, and it felt like absolute garbage. Partly maybe because there was no sound effects and stuff, but one of the things we learned along the way is that passive effects were not the vibe we wanted to. It's why the radioactive clouds got removed. It's why minions got removed. It's why the fireballs got removed. It's like these things that aren't instant and visceral didn't feel like they fit the true vibe of what we thought made the demo fun. And so going into the full game, we tried to play with some of those ideas and they just didn't really pan out where we wanted them to be. And I think looking back, we put in a lot of time into those sort of passive effects that will absolutely be something we look at putting into some additional game modes and stuff like that. But that's probably my answer for something we put a lot of time and effort into that didn't really pan out.
Yeah, because there was a lot. Like people don't see it all. It's like frozen planets, fireballs, minions, UFO, a whole electric clicker kind of concept.
God, that's actually that's the one maybe is like electric clicker, which is gonna be a cool game mode, but like I remember being so excited by that idea and it just didn't work, which sucks.
Also, different types of comments. We did.
Oh yeah, we had a
even
bunch of
do
different
that.
types of comets. Like comets
Um,
barely works. I think comets is the one thing I'm like, it's fun and it's cool, but like it barely got across the finish line in my head. I was close to getting rid of it.
I
Pinata planets.
Oh yeah, pinatas. Yeah. And then like all the POCs on the core mechanic, those didn't even make it in the game at all.
Yeah.
Um,
It was originally a game where you moved the black hole around the screen and you just like AoE dotted everything and it would destroy in your AoE. But if you touched it, it didn't count for your score. So you had to like position yourself well, which was satisfying, but there was nowhere to go with that mechanic. It was a clicker where you had to click on the asteroids and break them, which was fun and fatiguing. And then there was a turret black hole where it would shoot. There was one, the very first one was you were a ship and you had to tether to black holes and pull it into the black hole's radius. That was the very first POC of this game. I spent a
and
lot
there
of
was
time on that.
spawning resources too. I think there was like little spawners. We went
Yes.
down the concept of
Oh
there's-
yeah. There's a lot of stuff that actually like, which is cool. That's cool to look back at. It's something I wish I would have documented and I didn't.
And I think was it this game? Didn't we have it where during the experiment phase there was a spot where you had to gather yourself?
Say it again.
There was. You had the asteroids, but you would break the asteroids, and the matter wouldn't automatically go. You would have to go and
you had to
actually
do the
select.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, you had to even click it, right? It wasn't like a hover, it was a click.
I don't remember which. Actually, I just remember it
We
wasn't
probably did both.
automatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, there a lot of things got trashed or put onto the maybe list. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. This flows really nicely into call is question. I don't know how to say that username. How did you come up with the initial vibe / idea in the first place? I see keep on mining inspiration with the breaker logic, and I see the basic idea of asteroids and black holes got iterated a lot afterwards to see interesting gameplay. I personally lack what's in between those 2 points in timeline. Figuring asteroids could be fun interpretation of this. Did it occur to you while taking a break, or did you have a specific workflow, like something like mood board, brainstorming, etc.? Brainstorming with a friend. All of my small initiatives failed because I can't find something with small enough scope that seems fun to play. So I'm all ears on whatever brainstorming process y'all go with, even if it's an ordinary stuff. The original idea for the game it was originally called A Game About Feeding a Black Hole. That was the original name of it. And it came from this Twitch chat, which we're recording this live. There is somebody can do it right now if you have 5,000 credits or 5,000 Irma coin. There's a redemption that says feed the black hole. And I initially put it in because I wanted to have a Twitch overlay where if somebody did it, a little spaceship would pop up and it would zoom around and then it would like dive into the black hole. I'm like, this seems like such a fun little thing to do. It seems cool. And the expected value on me probably spending 3 weeks to a month making that was just never there. There's no way that I was going to like make money from doing that sort of a thing. In my head, it was like, I didn't see the value. And so it just stayed there for years now. And so many people have redeemed this thing that I think innately, as I looked at what I wanted my next project to be post Hexagod, this idea just came to mind of like, oh, there's something in that name. Because the whole premise of this whole project for me was Hexagod missed because it wasn't apparent what the fun of the game was going to be. I think the game's fun. Like if you give it some time and you play it, you have a good time. But it was really hard to market it. I think the name was a mistake. I think the whole branding might have been a mistake. I think there's a lot of like mistakes I made along that way. And so what I wanted to do with this project was take that, any idea, because I know I could make a game and finish it, take some idea and package it just like I do with some YouTube videos, come up with the title and thumbnail first, and then figure out a game that fits inside of that wrapper. And I just had this idea that gut feeling that Feed the Black Hole was something that seemed, just from you guys pouring money or pouring points into this redemption, would work well. And from there is like we were talking about before, there was a lot of different prototypes to get there. And it really wasn't until I played Keep on Mining that I found a mechanic I like. Cause I remember playing it and I had never played Node Buster or anything like that. But I played Keep on Mining, and then I was messaging Corey and I was like, hey, I love Keep on Mining. I love how simple this is. It's so easy. You almost can't not play the game because it's so simple. You don't need a tutorial to understand how to do this. And I was like, I'm going to try to come up with something like this. And I think you at some point were just like, I know you were just like, let's just do that. Let's just take inspiration from Keep on Mining. Let's do that hovering mechanic. And then our iteration will be doing a tree that has a little bit better pacing of Keep on Mining. Because then we both played it for a while and thought about the things that we wanted to improve on and the vision that we wanted to take forward. And I am proud at this point that there's clear inspiration from the game, but I do think it ultimately feels a little bit different from the pacing of the skill tree and stuff like that. So that's my perspective on how we got the idea, how came up with the idea, and then you coming on board to help me kind of find that mechanic. Are there any gaps in that story or things that you want to fill in?
Nope.
Was there a point at which you were like, I want to work on this project? What was that? Do you remember that feeling or that moment?
It was during Twitch stream. We were chatting and you're experimenting and you're open to some stuff. And I just remember a couple of things suggesting like, hey, what about X? What about Y? Maybe change this. And I could I couldn't see the end state of the game. Like if you asked me the game was gonna turn out how it is now, absolutely not. Like that I could not see. Like not even close. Like not even at all. But it was more like, oh, okay, I see fast iteration and willingness to just throw out ideas without sunk cost fallacy, and I think that will find something.
Yeah.
And I was pretty sure once you said you were doing the incremental game, I was like, I can probably take something that is like not a crazy great mechanic. It might just be an all right mechanic. I'm not saying the game's an all right mechanic. I'm just saying where my mindset was watching the video, and like juice it up enough through the skill tree where it will become fun enough to be what
Yeah.
we originally were targeting for what we wanted out of the game, which was
Yeah.
not this, home run. It was well below this. So that's when I was like, okay, yeah, I think I want to work with this person. Let's see. We've just done the podcast on Click and Conquer, so I just kept the conversation going, and I was like, are you looking at wanting to do this with somebody? And it just worked out. So
My gut response back then too is like, absolutely, and it was simply because of your success with Click and Conquer. Someone along the lines asked me of like, would you have worked with Corey had he not done Click and Conquer? And it's absolutely no. I've been
yeah,
propositioned by so many people to like make games together, and it's just always been like, I need to see the upside. I don't have the runway and bandwidth to be able to like take big risks. And so the expected value of working with somebody has to be there. And for you to come in and have the skill set that you have and have the experience making Click and Conquer, it was such a no brainer of like, yeah, this is worth taking the risk on. Um, and it seems to have worked out pretty
yeah.
dang
I
well.
think Stefan himself asked you that during the Scout Creeper
Yeah.
podcast that you
Oh,
did
sure.
with him.
Yeah. 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 Oh yeah, it's a good question because that's the answer is no, absolutely not. I remember you messaged me about Click and Conquer, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Like you're like, can we talk? Can we come in your podcast? I was like, sure, whatever. I don't know who the fuck you are. Like, no, like whatever. And then you messaged me, and I like literally ignored you. And then Sockhouse reached out, and he's like, oh, my friend like Thornity, he like, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I like looked up Click and Conquer. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll have these guys on the podcast. Like, I literally remember having the feeling of being like, I don't want to talk to him. Whatever, I don't want to talk to you. Like, sure, you can come on. Yeah, whatever, come on my podcast. It's just such a funny, like, I just viscerally remember that feeling of just brushing you off. And like now, even through working with you, I'm trying to hear people out more. That's something that you've impacted in me of like, hear people out, see what they're doing. Maybe you can add value to them. It's worth your time to pay it forward in that regard. So another lesson I've learned along the way. Going into content a little bit more, somebody asked, Eternal asked in Discord, they said, will the main mode get more content or is it finished as is? And I was actually talking to a friend before the podcast about the main mode and feedback, but what are your thoughts on the main game mode that currently is listed? I think it's called normal mode. That's what we end up calling it.
I guess the question could also be worded as Corey, what do you not like about the game? Because there are many things of normal mode I do not like. There's definitely spots that I look back and I'm like, oh, I think this is too boring. I think this is too slow. I think we need another mechanic here. I think this could be changed. I think like people get to the end, they feel fried. I'm not. I don't think I have the answer necessarily to avoiding like the feeling fried. But there's definitely things in normal mode that even with how well the game's done, I do
Yeah.
not like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So will it change? I don't know. It depends. I think there's things that are good about it. I think the first act of the game is with the asteroids is pretty spot on.
Yeah. I don't think much will change with that at all.
I
Maybe
think
some
there's
timing of it, but it's really good.
I think the um a lot of the planets I think work out fine. I think all the right side of Act Two, where I pull down to get further, I do not like. I just jack up like the gold asteroids, and I like once the spot in which you hit the ability unlocks on planets like the electric and lasers and supernovas. I think that's good. I actually think that's too short. I think the lasers are too short for what they get, and that could be longer. Because I think once you get past supernova, I think that part's too long.
Yeah.
I think that's yeah. I think it could be fine if there's another mechanic there. I'm not sure what the mechanic would be or what the thing is, but I think that's what's missing there is we start breaking the rules around this like 6 to 10 minutes. You kind of get something at least new.
Yeah.
It's kind of like okay, you got this other, let's say 10 to 35 minutes of like you're just building up on your existing. And if that's the case, I think I should have shrunk it to get them to this like OP feeling.
Yeah.
There's definitely spots where I think jumping to the next type or next mass is too quick. I
Sure.
think players wanted to play around a little bit more without feeling the God experience a little bit longer before I just pull them back down to being like a whatever you want to say, a peasant, a weak player, where they have to face like the same loop of like, oh, you're back to the weakness again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'd agree with that. I think there's a decent chance that at a minimum, what we do is we go in and like just reduce basically planets onward. We take those things and we reduce the time it takes to get through those significantly. Significantly meaning like somewhere between 10 and 50% of different areas to just like accelerate to the end. And there's also a chance that we do go in and like adds a splash of something in planets, a splash of something like another mechanic in planets, another mechanic in stars, to also like keep some of that pacing, but then fill it out with more interesting stuff. It's hard to say. It's hard to really know what we'll do. I do think we will do a 2.0 at some point. Once kind of the
I
dust
want to bring
settles.
back the demo.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think Act One, that whole first asteroid thing is like in the demo particularly is chef kiss. I know there's a bunch of money manipulation, yada yada, compared to what we can do now with the mass and all that, but
Yeah.
um, I think that nailed it. And I think some of the feedback we got was like, I played demo and wanted this god tier moment at 35 minutes and just continue onwards. But the thing is, like, how do you
There's nowhere
continue
to go
onwards if
up.
you're already
Yeah.
god mode?
Yeah.
Like,
It's why the end of the game feels so impactful is we finally got to do
you're 100%
screen wide
correct.
stuff. Yeah. We finally got to find these moments where we're like, because like this is an implication of it is like as soon as you can start clearing huge swaths of stuff, where do you go from that other than like trying to then make that irrelevant? Like we could zoom out further and introduce galaxies, like and say, okay, well now the supernovas are such a small little blip that they don't actually like. It's a interesting idea and thought, and one of the fun things is we have so many other game modes to experiment with, right? Like we could experiment with the demo and just say, hey, this is the demo plus. Now this is a 45-minute medium size mode. So I think in the long run, I would be comfortable taking the main game mode and like bringing it from a 2-hour playthrough down to like an hour 20 or something.
Yep.
And then have three other quote unquote main modes. We're thinking all of this is subject to change, right? None of these don't hold us to anything here, but it's like main mode, roguelike mode, full idle mode, and then like full challenge mode. And then having those be all unlocked at the beginning. You can come in and play any one of them. We stand by each and every one of them as this could be the full game. And like that's the long tail vision of like supporting this game for. It might take us years to get there, right? Or it could take us months to get there. I have no idea what the future holds. All I know is right now I want to play some TFT, and you want to play League. I guess we're gonna be Riot fanboys for a little bit here. So yeah, short answer, probably we'll touch main mode at some point. Like, yeah, that's it.
On this question, things that reminded me of another question that you asked, like, what would I not do moving forward? And you talking about this was reminding me of some of the things was like, I don't want to make a hard deadline commitment in the next
Nope,
game.
that was a mistake.
Like, yep, like coming soon or like broad dates is fine.
I even thought when I put the dates on, I was like, is this dumb?
But live and learn.
What yeah.
The other thing was epilogue or like extended or endless. I know if I was to do that again, I don't want it to just purely be only maxing out existing stuff. I think there's this inherent, like, you have to introduce something the player doesn't have. Like, I think that's where the game's.
It could have been a moment to even crunch down, and this would have been a lot more work to do. But like epilogue literally do something. Now the black hole is really far, like do something and like reset the tree in some regard, or do something where they warp into this new zone. Like I think there's an option for epilogue to actually feel like this weird different thing, like a secret ending situation. And right now it's really just like, hey, you can play this for another hour if you want to. And I'm shocked that people are beating it. I thought people would be like, oh, this is a lot of the same. I'm done.
There's just a percentage of players who want to see just how big and how chaotic and how far they can get.
It's true.
So
It's true. Next question. We already talked about this, but it's like failed prototypes. I'll move on from that one then. Someone asks, Echo Xavier or something. Echo. I'm really bad at names. I'm curious about the inner workings of the game. How much are shaders? Is each object its own object, or all one compute shader? Secret third option. Most of it is sprites. The asteroids, planets, stars are all sprites. There are layered sprites, copies of each other. They're then have a shader that fills up basically how much damage they're doing. So a lot of really simple solutions to make all that stuff work. Shaders are electric. There's more. The laser effect around the stars is a shader. There's more.
you want me?
There's
a
more.
supernova.
Supernova is a shader.
The black hole is a shader itself.
The black hole itself, and
maw?
then the gravity maw. The gravity part is all. Is that the only 5? Oh, the scrolling texture of the golden asteroid and the rainbow are also shaders. They're just like a simple scrolling texture. Nothing is all that crazy. I think the biggest thing that is like was challenging. The 2 biggest challenges I overcame with development, and your help as well, and then also Nick Glenn's helping with optimization in chat here. The 2 biggest things are the particles flowing into the center are what's called a mesh instance 2D. That's making all those things be one draw call, but there are still so many of them at the end game that we do tone them down, hopefully imperceptibly, but somebody did notice it. I don't know if you saw that comment. Someone said, I want a slider to be able to ramp back up because I think you guys are doing something with it. I'm like, that's crazy that you noticed that. So that all is a big optimization thing. And the other big thing we overcame was originally, and the demo is still this way, they were all physics bodies. And physics calculations in Godot are really expensive. We weren't gaining anything. And so it's right now, the whole game is a hyper-optimized Boyd algorithm for things to space each other out. And there's batch processing and stuff like that so that it kind of feels the trick to game development is it's all an illusion. It just simply has to feel good. It doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't have to be physically perfect. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It just has to feel good enough. And getting that to feel good enough was kind of something that opened my brain to optimization. Yes, every frame you could update everything, but our brains don't notice that. So you could update a third of their positions every frame, and it's probably still okay. Stuff like that went a long way, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
Next question: is there anything I missed with like the inner workings that you're interested in calling out?
I think the thing that we could have done or could still do for quality of life is trying to I don't know what the exact word is. Like we'll call it the performance tab of settings, adjusting based off of what we get. Like when they boot up the game, it's like if it's a really low spec computer, we should probably just actually turn down the
we do none of
particles.
that.
Yeah, but right now it's like you get the full game that we test on. Like I got a pretty beefy machine, you got a pretty beefy machine. We do test, or I've tested on a Steam Deck, and it works and it's fine. But like I am sure there are people play. I saw someone report with like integrated graphics on a laptop. They're like computer struggle. It's like on fire. It's like, well, I look up the laptop. It's like, yeah, it's an 8-year-old laptop, and you're using the integrated graphics. It's not even a real graphics card. Like,
yeah, I think it's something where the game looks deceivingly simple. And it's like you expect it to be fine, but it's like there's so much processing happening under the hood for something like this that that it's interesting, right? Like thinking of something like Norp Apogee and like how they probably have some sort of multi-mesh instance with those things flowing, but then the actual entities that are doing things are not that many. Like you're not getting 500 Norps doing. Maybe you are at the end game, but like, I don't know. I'd be interested to talk to some more developers who do games with high optimization to see what sort of stuff they do that I could take into my game or our game.
Yep.
It'll likely be something I try to design around in the future. Ooh, maybe here's a good topic. Decisions we made for optimization reasons. The whole idea of the mass of an object is all based around optimization for the game so we can scale it. Because if you're trying to give somebody more money, it's really hard to just keep making more objects on the screen. We play with size of objects to also give you more money, but like all of a sudden then you're taking up screen real estate. And so a lot of our early conversations were around how does this mechanic work to basically be able to make given asteroids, planets, or stars be more valuable, and that's where the coloring comes in with mass.
I think you're forgetting a little bit of the story.
What is the rest of the story?
Well, the reason to why the ads in progress. I guess you'll have ads in progress in the recording.
No, it's not. I hide that from the
okay.
podcast. It's just the Twitch viewers.
Was the reason why the demo has a money manipulator is because originally it was tied.
Linear?
It was one experience to one particle, if we call it that, one object.
Yeah.
And some objects had like 5 EXP per one, but we would spawn more of these. And I remember going in being, you were like, why did we add the money thing? I was like, we can't do the other way. The game just freezes. Like I tried. And then that's when we got talking about it and when we revamped what used to be called density and we switched to mass, mostly because density doesn't translate very well in localization and people are getting confused because they thought it meant it spawned more, the area would be more dense. It was like, hey, can we decouple that? Like, can we not have one object be one experience? Because if we want 5,000 EXP, that means we have to, and $5,000, that means we have to have 5,000 objects on the screen. And then we start talking about like, I know the games can have like billions or trillions, so like,
yeah.
we have to stop that.
Yeah.
And that's when you would re-implement it.
Yeah, you start scaling up numbers, and a lot of different game development things can do this, but you quickly realize that even the most optimized of things are going to just fall over if all of a sudden you're spawning 50,000 particles every second from breaking some things. So the other optimization thing I think that I'll call out was upgrading objects. Going from asteroids to planets and positioning the mod as an upgrade was a way to try to cull the lesser objects. Now we then eventually changed our mind and wanted to pull up the number of asteroids at the end game too, but that allows us to not necessarily be clamped by previous decisions. So if we did at one point want to have there be a ton of asteroids, like we ramp up to like 200 or something at some point, we didn't want to then be clamped by that to say, well, now we can only have 30 planets or something like that. So that upgrading mechanic is something that we did for optimization purposes, and then have since now added in support and modifiers to just say this adds a flat 10 planets or something like that. So for playing with other game modes. Cool. Talking about wish lists, there's some questions around that. What are some highlights? Oh, we'll go back one question. This is from JW. Says, I heard about Thornity's magic content creator / YouTube search tool. Do you have any tips on how us normies could do something similar? What is that thing? I also have to go to the bathroom, so you're going to answer this question by yourself.
Great, no problem. So I guess I can plug this podcast. It's the Dev Dream Podcast. You can just search dev.dream.podcast on YouTube. I have a podcast in there where I talk a little bit about the tool. That's maybe where you heard about it. Essentially what I did was what you would manually do yourself It's like, how would you find a game related to your space? Particularly, you're going to do this for tags, right? How do you tag your game? Well, you want it to show up like other games. So, what are the other games in your genre? Okay, so you find one. We find Norp, the Norp game. Okay, but once you found Norp, you're going to find other games similar to that, either on Steam or the content creators. So you search Norp on YouTube, you look at the content creators who cover that, you click their profile, you look at all the games they cover. They're more incremental. There's Wizard Tower, there's Keep on Mining, there's a game about feeding a black hole. Okay, you go to those content creators, and then you go to those content creators, and then the next game, and the next game. You search the next game and the next content creator, and you're just basically just, I don't like reverse search of like I want all the channels who cover Keep on Mining, and then tell me all the videos of those content creators, and then tell me everyone who covers those games. And then you just go through a boatload of YouTube captchas to get the emails once you have like the Excel sheet. And a boatload means like it was like 15, 20 hours of me going through YouTube captchas to just get all the emails. So if you're a dev, you can probably build the tool with ChatGPT's help. There's no super secret magic to what I did. Like you have to be aware that if you go to YouTube and you ask for like 10,000 channels at a time, yeah, they're gonna block you. But if you just sleep and wait whatever 5 seconds out and you're reasonable in the request, they're not gonna be able to tell it from normal traffic. I think it took me about 8 to 10 hours for the script to run. And it was because it was non-async because I did not want to get blocked by YouTube. And I just slowly just went through one by one. And then another, I don't know, 15, 20 hours when you get through CAPTCHAs. And I don't know, maybe 20 hours of me going through the initial list of like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes. Like, which ones do we want? Which ones do we not want? Which ones are valid? Because there were some false positives to this, right? Like games that have common names. Like, I don't know. There's an incremental game called Execute. But if you search on YouTube for Execute, you're going to get non-game content.
A lot.
You're probably going to get content you should not want.
Yes.
But that will then give you a bunch of channels that says like, hey, these people covered this game. Well, that's not true. They covered videos on the keyword execute.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting. Thornity carried the team on the marketing front and had put in so many hours of probably just proving that he wasn't a robot. And I appreciate that.
I actually got pretty good at the captchas, to be honest.
Can confirm, not a robot. Imagine CAPTCHA gives you a badge someday saying like, yeah, you've done this 1,000 times now. Here's a badge. You're not a robot. This next question is from Shane. Shane asks, what are some highlight events that saw an impactful increase in wishlist traffic? The biggest one is YouTube coverage and the Next Fest. People covering a game on YouTube is insanely high. Basically, none of my videos really moved the metric ever. Developers are interested in me for development purposes. Maybe not necessarily like some of you have gone and played the game and wishlisted and stuff like that. But like the biggest needle is somebody playing it and having a fun time playing it. And ending the video, like the demo ending with this big spiky fun kind of aha moment was such a huge, like so many of those demo YouTube videos, the content creator ended were like, I want more. And that's perfect. I think that those calls to action, which weren't calls to action, it was simply, I want to play this full game. That feeling that they would invoke was probably the biggest driver, I would imagine, to getting people to come over to the YouTube page and wishlist the YouTube page, the Steam page and wishlist it. How about you? Like milestone moments? You could talk about Nexus if you want or something like that, but
oh, that was it. Like the content creators and
it's everything.
Once you got that initial, that got us to Next Fest to get more visibility. We had content creators cover us during Next Fest. That drove more traffic from Steam. That got us to the minimum for popular up and coming, which again would drive more wish lists once we were getting closer to release.
Yeah.
It wasn't as significant as you'd think it would be, but like if we were a smaller game in terms of wish lists, like that can be very helpful. Like let's say you get there 10,000 wish lists, like which is a great number. That additional popular up and coming might be another 4,000 or 5,000 wish list. which is significant. That's 40 to 50% increase on your wish list.
Yeah.
Like, for a game about feeding black hole, when we got to popular up and coming, we were already 37, 40,000 ish. So the popular up and coming, like, yeah, it added like, let's say 4 or 5,000, but percentage wise, it wasn't the same as the content creators were way more,
Yeah.
just way more.
The nice thing that Thornity did with the emails as well is when we sent out the batches for demos and Next Fest, he asked if they would be interested in covering or being part of like the early. There's like a call to action that wasn't necessarily cover the demo. It was like, if you want to be part of our press release stuff, and they would respond and say yes, he'd add them to the list. And so we did do a batch of press release basically a week before, which is where you saw like Real Civ Engineer and
Yep.
there's like 5 or 6 more people who didn't cover the demo who did cover it in that press release batch. But like that was huge too. That was like the beginning of kind of the growth right before launch, that we're able to get those people to cover the game. So
it also helped because we didn't have a lot of coverage on release date. Actually, we haven't had a ton of coverage to what I thought
like,
for releasing. And you don't know, but like I know there's at least 3 content creators of significant size who do have videos. They're just scheduled. So you don't control that. So we were worried about I think we both shared this worried about sending out the emails, and we had no embargo, and it was just suggested like probably the best day to send out your video is the day of the release of the game, and there was a handful of people who did it earlier. But I would take that any day over them reading the embargo and going, yeah, maybe I'll get to this game. Like, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Would have been nice to.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it would have been nice to have absolute control, and it would have been 9 a.m. right at release or whatever time it was, and right when we were. Of course, like you want to stack that, but do we have that muscle? No. Well, like especially before this game, like absolutely not. Like to go and ask for them to all abide by the embargo and release at a particular time. It's bigger risk that they read and just go, oh, embargo, you know what? Not worth it. I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't pay anybody to cover the game. And so it's like, imagine Real Civ Engineer doesn't play it. I think he was the biggest video in that batch. Like that's a 250,000 people who don't see the game at all. And like, that's a huge downside if he's just like, well, I already have a game. I have stuff. I had this opening on the Saturday. Perfect. Whatever. We'll put your game in there. That's great. But like in that moment, I was like, are we fumbling this? That was the thought I kept having. Is this a mistake? And it's just like, I had to like take a step back. I'm like, no, like it's only upside. It's just maybe not the perfect moment for those videos to come out. And that's okay. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, or good be the enemy, whatever it is. There's a saying, insert it here. This next one comes from Connor. This is for me. It says, for Aramis. How has working on a small team compared to working solo? How might your experiences on this game inform your approach to team size for future projects? Somebody also asked in here earlier, does the success of this game change the scope and size of future games? I'm going to wrap that into the same question here for this answer. I will probably never make a game by myself again. I'm grateful and happy that I had the experience being a solo developer. I think that taught me a lot about making games. It taught me a lot about what I'm good at, where my skill sets are best used, what is my expected value, and the things I can do the best. It also taught me the things I don't like doing, and partly why Thornity was a good fit for this partnership is that he's okay sitting there to do captchas for a week to get the YouTube stuff. I'm sending out 20 keys and calling that good. That's not enough keys. That's something I've learned is you need to send out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of keys to hopefully get 5 people to play a game. If you're not paying people to do it, it's simply a numbers game. So I don't know if I'll ever make a game by myself in the future. I loved the ability to have someone else who has skin in the game, somebody else who has stands to make a profit from the game, because my goals as a developer are to be a profitable studio. So there's a lot of times where we'd have conversations and we would disagree. That is so healthy for a game, to disagree, to come to a solution, or to disagree and say, let's deal with this later. And a lot of times later never came, and we didn't do the thing we were disagreeing about. That partnership and that working together on this project together was incredible. Team size in the future, probably have zero plans to take this funding and gamble it all on another game. The next game is probably going to even be a little smaller than this game, and just try to do it even quicker and more efficiently, just because we also have plans to keep supporting this game. So equal to or less than would be my goal for the next project. I think it's really dangerous to say I was successful and now I can scale up. And that could be fun if someone wants to gamba and do that. But right now I could make, probably with the funding from these last 4 days, I could probably make 5 more games of this size, and have them all make $0 and be fine. So I'm going to do that, I think, for the foreseeable future. This one's for Thornity. What was the biggest takeaway or learning from the project working with Aramis?
I will never work on a game as a team again. No. Chat said it. I had to read it. So the biggest takeaway. Okay, let's start with. I'll answer both things. Okay, you guys get the full transparent. I'll answer things I really enjoyed and things that maybe I didn't enjoy. Things I really enjoyed was, there are certain things I really don't like doing, and I just will avoid them. Particularly example is, I don't necessarily remember how all the modes get loaded in the game. So I like just building a tree, and then I just send it to Andy. I'm like, you go make the resource. I don't want to make the resource. You go find the icons. I don't want to name it. I don't care what it's named. Like,
there's so many times I ask you for, like, what do you think the mod description should be? You're like, I don't know, just pick something. I'm like, what about the icon? You're like, I don't know, just pick something. I'm like, okay, I'll pick it.
Those, because for me, those are like always open doors. Like, if we pick something that's like,
we can.
You know what?
It.
I'm not feeling it. We'll just change it.
Yep.
It's a non-consequential decision. And to be honest, I don't have some sort of like lore or background to be like, oh, I think the theme is really going to be X, so we should stay true to that. It was kind of like, I don't know, like, what are you thinking? Like, I'm probably just gonna go with what you're saying. If you don't have any idea, I could give you some ideas, but I think they're going to be equal or less than your own ideas. So
yeah.
Or I'm just gonna be like, all right, Jippity, let's figure this out together. Like, what is a good idea for a game? Like, Jippity. I don't know. Yeah, ChatGPT. I personally, so I did a startup a long time ago, and during that startup, we raised money, and it crashed and burned for various reasons. But in that process, I learned I can't do a solo thing. My motivation is a motivation of I don't care about letting down myself, and I don't care about the guilt of making a bad decision for myself. I will live with that. No problem. Yeah, I'll go play League all day. But someone else who has an expectation, and I know, okay, me not doing this is just screwing over that person, is like a guilty motivation. And that holds me accountable. So that is why I know I work well. I need someone in a project with me, because on myself, I would just go play League of Legends for the next 6 months and just be like, yeah, I'll live with the consequences. I just let myself down. So be it. Like, things that weren't thrilling. There's times where I'm like pretty stuck on an idea, and then it's like, you would be like, well, I don't think it should be this. I'm like, no, but I know it should be this way. Like, okay.
In those moments, would you grind your heels in and like hopefully get me to come across? Because I think there were some moments where I disagreed and hopefully then just agreed with you and like went with it. Were there any like moments that stand out? Like, how did I react to those moments where you were like really like confident?
Probably there was something with I don't remember exactly. It was like UI related. I think when we redesigned the front UI, and I don't remember what it was like it was like the buttons didn't have any effect when you hover over them. And I think I got my wife to sit down and she didn't even know they were buttons. So she was like, "What do I do to play the game?"
I think looking back, you invoking your wife's opinion helped a lot to change. Like, I'm like, because like you telling me what you think it should be is one thing, but then like you, I discount developer opinions quite a bit. I've realized during this process, because I'm more interested in player opinions. And then you saying what your wife did or thought. I'm like, she's not a developer. She's just
She is a developer actually.
wait, doesn't she doesn't like graphical design stuff, right?
She's a front end developer.
Oh my gosh. Oh, my
But
whole world shattered. But even so, there was moments where you'd say my wife thinks this or felt this way. I'm like, okay, cool. We need to address that.
I know because I had to. I'd actually be like, I go to her and be like,
Am I crazy?
remember
You're like, can you fact check me, please? Am I
No.
completely off base here? Aramis is gaslighting me.
it, it was particularly something with the UI because I felt like, oh God, I think this could actually like ruin the opportunity. Like if people open the game, they don't understand how to get into the game. Like we're gonna lose such a huge percentage of people.
Oh, it was like probably the play button stuff and that like that initial UI was garbage, and even like the confirmation buttons on the new game mode. There's a lot of like UI moments where I was just like, you were right, and I just was like, I was trying to get the game across the finish line. I think in a lot of ways, in a lot of moments, but yeah. Keep going on your list of things that that you didn't like working with me. I think that's a good one.
But that was it. It's just moments where I'm like, yeah, but web design standards, I have 50 years of that. I know it should be this way. Why aren't we doing it this way? And I just have to be like, you know what? It is what it is. Let's just get the game done.
It's true. It's true.
Like the arrows on the carousel, I knew that wouldn't destroy the game, but I was pretty confident in being like, I know that's the way it should be. Like
that one I agreed and still do. It's not good, but it was like this is currently what's working.
I know.
Okay. Anything else from working? Do I have construct? I'd have to think more about like.
I don't know if that was constructive. That was just things that
feedback. Yeah, I don't think I'm not gonna change my behavior because of it.
No, now I just know. I just have to.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I just know that I have to say, well, Andy, my wife said.
Yeah, you're just gonna invoke that all the time. I'm like, stop it.
Well, now you know she's a front end dev, so I have to be like, X person said. I have to go find someone who we both know who's not a dev.
Perfect. Now I know. I will say in general, I did appreciate working with you, and it was a good experience, all things considered. Like I truly think had it not been a good experience, the product would have suffered. And I appreciated working with you and like having a lot of times our conversations weren't about games. Like we'd sit there and talk for like 10 minutes about other stuff, right? Like having you invested and you excited, like that helped fuel a lot of my excitement as well. Like I build on top of the excitement moments. So like moments where you got really excited about stuff, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, like I could develop all day long. So it truly was a good experience, and I think the product is better because of it. And I think that our future games, like I could see myself making many more games with you. So thank you.
Likewise. I don't want to end on any sort of negative note. I also enjoyed. There was just moments where I'd be like, I don't have any here, but oh God.
I think those are good though. I think there's plenty of good moments like that where we that just proves the point of like having two people with skin in the game makes you figure out those moments, right, where we're disagreeing. I think that's a healthy thing. Whether or not I'm receptive to it is different.
That's a good way to put it.
We already answered that question. What methods did you use to design the game mechanics and feel? How many dev hours per week? What did the responsibilities fall? How did you normally collaborate? What did sessions look like? Kind of like this.
Yeah, I think we work better when we're like this than necessarily always on Discord. Sometimes we'll go chat mode, which is probably better for like individual work.
Yeah.
But there were definitely times where like we'd try and hash it out over text, and then it's like
It's
30
just
minutes
faster.
what could have been 5 minutes in a
Yeah.
chat if we just be like, you know what, call. And I don't know about you, but I typically don't necessarily like calls. I don't know. I don't like the friction initially. It feels more like formal, and now I had to be ready and like, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, but
Yeah. I think normally, yeah, I agree. We had frequent calls, probably every couple of days. And I, a lot, it's just a lot of it is feel. I think one of the things that made this game successful in looking back at my old games from like how I came up with ideas for stuff, um, was back to what Chess Survivors was. Chess Survivors, I was like, what's cool? What do I think is fun? Like, what sounds interesting? What sounds cool? And I would try to put it into Chess Survivors. And I think I did that again with this game. I'm like, what seems fun? What is a cool thing that I like in games? What is, and that I could actually build in a reasonable amount of time? And I think that was part of like kind of the design pillars, just like what's cool. And then we tried it out. And that's why at the beginning of the podcast, we mentioned all of these things that we tried out that didn't actually end up feeling cool, just because our taste matters. Like, that's
yep.
kind of what really drove it. What stuck around wasn't necessary. We didn't like take moons to like 15 people and say, give us feedback on moons. It was like, eventually we were like, oh, moons are cool. We found how to make them feel like crack. And like, all of a sudden they become this thing that you want to go and get. You search out, and like, when we felt that was something, that's when we knew we had something. And if we couldn't get there, we kind of just removed it. Um,
I I really like the fact that we worked separate for that because I go back to the same kind I said. I felt like we would have mechanics that maybe could have been like dismissed as like, oh, it's not good enough. But like you'd be like, it functionally works. And then it'd come over to
here
me
it
and I'd
is.
be
Here's
like,
the mods.
I think I can get this good enough. Like I think I can
Yeah.
actually find the spot where this feels really good with it. Like I think moons were one of those things where you think, ah, how fun is it going to be? But once you stack them and you ramp up the modifiers, they're one of the best feeling mods, like
Yeah.
by far.
Yeah.
That them and lasers are probably the top ranking ones. Well, okay, electric
Yeah, I was
on
gonna
the
say, you can't.
asteroids,
Electric is the coolest thing in the whole game. Like, that's just great.
but
Um,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So just very is organic and natural, and I think for me as like the main developer is like the whole backbone of this project was based in what can I do and what are my skill sets, which is just like understanding my abilities and then letting the work be what do we put in the game, not necessarily how do I do it. And I think that helped kind of just like narrow down the scope, because it wasn't like, oh, let me try to come up with this mechanic and this thing. And like a lot of these mechanics are things I've done before in other types of games or prototypes or things that like, oh yeah, I can easily just do a laser that goes across the screen. It's just a line 2D that gets drawn. There's literally nothing to it, other than like then making the mods and changing it and stuff like that. So just trying to be really smart and frugal with our time investments helped really kind of narrow down the design scope. Um, Question from chat here from Sesh. Question for Thornity: have you gotten new requests to work on other people's projects? Would you work on niche game genres too, not vetted by Chris Sikowski?
um, the Reddit genre stuff is kind of like uh, I'm not in this because this was vetted by him. I'm in this because like when Stefan had looked with Click and Conquer, it was a genre that we looked and said was reproducible in a time, and this capability technically, like from a technical perspective and even design, was low enough to do. It wasn't like, oh, I read his blog post at the time of like that's after the fact that he's come out and said like it's the golden era, the genre is a golden whatever it calls I'll just say golden era. He had a particular term for it. Um, other genres I've looked and I think they're possible. I just think they take more time than like 400 hours. Um, like we've talked about like friend slop genre, and I think that is a very interesting genre to go do, like this co-op multiplayer collaboration games. Uh, I the Stefan and I have talked about like simulation genre about like grocery stores and factory building and things like that. And I think that's another good genre that, I mean, I guess you'd say, oh, Christy probably has said these are already good, so it doesn't matter. Um, I just know I would not do a purely platformer side scroller game if it didn't have incremental or roguelike vibe to it. And I definitely will never, I can pretty confident say never do a puzzle game.
Why?
It goes against all the rules for what I would do. Content creators, almost zero. Replayability of the game, zero. Once you solve the puzzle, you're done. You don't watch the content creators because that solves the enjoyment of seeing it. You'll only watch
That's such a
content
good point.
creators for the frustration. And the people who watch content creators for the frustration of not
Don't
being able
buy
to solve the
games.
puzzle
Yeah.
don't play puzzle games the because they wouldn't be watching the content creators solve the, like, yeah, it's incredibly hard genre. Like I anyone who goes into that and can do even modest game, like if you can do like 20K in a puzzle game, I consider that a really good success, because it's so hard. um Coming up with a unique puzzle to even solve is already hard. The
Well,
marketing's
and we
hard.
can only test it once. Like once I know the aha moment of a puzzle, I can't rehab the aha moment. And if I've designed the puzzle, I can't, because I could give you a puzzle and you could say, "Can I solve this?" But like as soon as you do it once, then it's like, how do you judge how difficult that is? I think that would be so hard to do.
And I see chat a lot. It's like blueprints, but I don't look for the anomalies. I look for the predictability. Like I
Right.
like to look somewhere and say, like, there's other games
Yeah.
that are consistently doing this. This is a viable, sustainable, profitable genre for me to do it in.
Yeah.
Because the stats are against you. Like, how many puzzle games are there on Steam versus blueprints?
It's a good amount. It's a good amount.
So
Yeah.
the other request stuff, like, yeah, there are people, but I some of it I wanted to say yes, but I just don't have the time. That's the other thing. Is like, okay, so there's Black Hole. We're talking about doing another game, right? You know, I have a game with Stefan even before a game about feeding a black hole, which needs to be wrapped up. So like already that's enough going on to be like, oh, but what about XYZ? It's like I really think people don't fully grasp the amount of time involved on some of the tasks. Like the black hole skill tree is like, oh, you just put down some tiles. Like you've done a map where you get an idea of it, where it's like, okay, go back, figure out the pacing,
It's
then figure out what
tedious.
abilities, figure out the economy,
And a
then
lot
make
of it
sure
is
that they
that
can
the
get
tool
like,
needs to be fixed to be less tedious, but it is, but even just the iteration of like, you tweak one number, if it's because the backbone of the skill tree is like, we want you to come to the next, we want you to come to the upgrade tree and have something to buy. That idea is hard to balance because you have to test it. And it's like you have to run through it a couple times to get an average and see, okay, at this point you get about this much money. And then you have to like go back and change it. And if you ever want to change anything, you have to go back and do that all again.
and even if you didn't have to go back and change it, it's like we had gone through so many different iterations on the tree, even when I didn't have the economy there. I'd
Yeah.
be like, does this feel like the right time for this ability? Does this feel like the ability is like what we want it to feel like with the other abilities? Like, it takes up a lot of time, like a lot more than I think people really realize. And that's the irony about the incremental space. Everyone looks and says easy genre, and then they come in and it's like the vector art. Oh, look how simple it looks. It must be easy. And it's like, oh man, the simple looking stuff is sometimes some of the hardest stuff. And incremental genre is not you're building the, yes, you need a core mechanic that's fun, But I tell people you're really building the skills. The skill tree is like a lot of time where you're going to sink. Um, yeah. So
Yeah, I like that. Hmm.
plus I don't need to work with anyone else. As long as we keep working together, there's actually not a reason.
No, yeah, the Sock and I can keep you busy, I think, in a given year. I don't think you'll have, wanting for um, work to do. Like, imagine both of
So
us make 2 games a year with you. That's a lot. That's a lot of games. And
even
the
just
odds are
one
that some of
game.
that there's only 3 next fest, so some of that stuff's gonna overlap. That seems overwhelming.
Well, even just one game, because games that are, I'll just keep saying modest, and you replace it in your mind with whatever modest success means. They're going to come with maintenance, patches, additional content. There's could be upside to the opportunity. Like now, it's not just, oh, game with Andy mining game. It's no game with Andy mining game, and how much more time do we want to spend on black hole, and how much should we be spending? Right, that takes out time from the overall budget for both of us.
Yeah. And now that we've opened up the cookie of a game about being a black hole, we can actually put data behind some of those decisions.
Yeah, so
Just like you can do that with Click and Conquer in some regard. Like you can look at it sales to say if we do X, Y, and Z, we can do a visibility round, and that gives us X, Y, and Z, and you have context for decision making, which is helpful.
yep.
Any final questions, either from you or Chad? I think I went through the whole list of things I wanted to do. Any final too soon look backs at the retrospective or anything of the game?
Hmm.
How do we defend scope creep of this game? That's a good question for this podcast. Looking at the game and what we did, how do we defend scope creep? How do we keep ourselves from doing too much? As we did move the deadline, right? It was we were gonna release on November something, 10, 11, I don't know, something like that. And we moved it to December 15th, and I think that was a great decision we made. I don't regret that even a little bit. So that could be scope creep, but I think that the scope didn't really change all that much. The biggest change in the scope creep was like realizing that we could do additional game modes. And even then, that's not like a ton of scope creep in that regard, in the same regard that I think typically scope creep is seen. Do we have any magic that we've learned from scope creep?
If I asked you this question, is there anything we think the game could be removed but still have done as well, or near as well, we'll say? At the moment, I can't say because it's inconclusive to me. Maybe the game modes, like maybe the game would have actually been just successful without the other modes, but now we get into the long tail and we have to see how much that drives on additional sales.
I have a feeling the concurrent users we've gotten, even from adding what we added 3 modes this week, I
Yeah.
think that boost in concurrent users has been, I don't know the numbers, but my gut says that that's been driven from additional game modes.
So we could have removed it, but the game would have been maybe less
Oh,
successful.
we didn't mention it, but something that I want to do again is speedrunning achievements. I would not put those in the base game and take them out.
I thought you were saying you want to re-add them again.
No.
We just removed them.
People complained about it and had really good reasoning. It's just I'm like I completely agree. I got blindsided by the fact that people were speedrunning the demo, and I thought that was awesome. I love the idea of someone speedrunning my games, and so I was like, oh cool, it'd be fun to put like little, I was trying to make them like easy enough to get, but I'm like, people are just like, it kind of goes against the core vibe of the game, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of, our job is, we don't really want someone to speed through the game. We want them to enjoy themselves and have a good time. And speedrunning achievements kind of go against that core vibe. And so I think moving forward, I'll try to find different ways to encourage speedrunners. and have that be a audience that gets catered to, but doing it from a opt-in perspective, not a, like, I think, well, a lot of people seem to want to do achievement run, like 100% games. So that's something I'll say that I would not do again, is achieve speedrunning type achievements. So yeah, that we could remove that and the game would have been just as fun. There you go.
Yeah.
It is.
How do you feel about the incremental genre now, having shipped a game, and like regardless of what its success is? Like, I don't mean just because of success. I just meant, like, are you done with it? You feel done with it? Like, I know we're doing likely another game in that space, but I meant, like, mentally you're just like,
Nope. Oh, I want to make more. I think there's untapped potential that we're tapping right now with the game about feeding black hole that I want to explore in other ways, and even like in the long run, I want to make like a Dredge or a Dave the Diver type. Like if you ask me right now, we're gonna do a game for a year, what's that game gonna be? I think that it's like a Dredge type game that is, it's like a slower incremental game, I suppose, is how I picture Dredge. It's much less of a manic, like, Game About Feeding Black Hole is a little bit more manic in the way of, like, you're going to sit down and play it for 2 hours and then you might never touch it again, and that's okay. That's kind of, it's by design. Like, if you get to the end of it and you feel burnt out and you're like, cool, that was awesome, this was a great, that 2 hours went by like this, I'm perfectly fine with that in this game. The game modes are simply because it's fun. I'm interested in exploring the genre more, I think, than less at this point.
do you think that changed?
I'd always been curious and wanting to dive into it. Having made a couple Game Jam incremental games, I was like, this seems, I had fun making those games. Did that change by actually doing it and releasing it? I don't think so. I think I've always been interested, not always, but I like not having a difficulty curve. I like having a progression curve. That seems so much more easy to balance. Not easy. I'll say it. I think it's easier than a difficulty curve. I think difficulty curves are hard because difficulty is a relative term, where I think progression feels like it's a little bit less relative. It still is feel, but I think it's easier to do than a difficulty curve, is my opinion. And there's just, like, with how we did it, there's so many less variables. It's nice.
I ask it because I remember you had mentioned, okay, game about feeding black hole, and you're like, probably one other incremental, and then I'll probably mentally be done. And I'm asking if that has changed or if that is still the same.
I think I have at least one more in me. That's all I know right now.
Yep.
I don't have an idea for a third incremental game, if that's what you're trying to get to. That hasn't popped up, which maybe is the signifier to the answer. Is like, I have an idea for one more. Do I have an idea for two more? The next idea is like a Dredge-like game, so it's maybe that is truly the answer then.
Cool.
Yeah. There you go. Any other questions from chat? Otherwise, it's been a good podcast. That's it. Can you say Scope Creeper?
Scope Creeper.
Sweet. Thank you. Pretty cool conversation. I hope that our working relationship came through in there. I truly do have a lot of fun working with him. We're planning to make more games in the future together, and he'll probably be on the podcast again and again. There'll be a link below if you want to, like, schedule a consulting call with Thornity. I think he still has that open. I'm actually not 100% sure. And then that's about it. I guess I also offer my own game dev coaching. It's still $50 an hour if you want to hang out and chat about game development or get help on, like, kind of figuring out the next steps for you and your goals. It's a little bit like, it's partially like, I started doing therapy this year. I've been doing it now for 6 months, which is awesome. I'm really starting to feel some of the gains and really starting to understand myself a bit more. But I feel like game dev coaching is part like therapy, part like coaching, and it's that interesting in between area, because for me this is a very emotional journey and making a creative thing that people are supposed to have fun, which I guess is a creative and emotional thing in general. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Have a good rest of your year. I'll be back in the feeds in January with a couple cool episodes I have planned. Yeah, probably. I have one scheduled for the end of the year to talk to somebody, but I doubt that'll be out by the end of the year. So look for me in your feed early January, and make sure you go check out A Game About Feeding a Black Hole. If you already have, make sure to leave a review. If you've already gotten this far and you haven't, if you've listened to this whole freaking podcast and you haven't listened to a review, you're either probably sleeping at this point. I'm in your other monitor and you forgot I was even here, or you've already left a review because you're a huge supporter of Aramis and Thornity and you know how great reviews are. So you've already left a review over on the Steam page, because we're almost at 1,000 and I really want to get to 1,000 by the end of the year, because I hear that's a milestone or a club. I don't know. Round numbers are great. Help me out. I appreciate it. I've been Aramis. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.